Welcome to today's presentation of the webinar series of the Anticipatory Governance Slack. I'll be talking about the future school lunch, and my name is Max Spiegelberg. At the start, I'll give an introduction about the FEAST project, where I'm based, and the school lunch in general in Japan. Then the project itself, and what it all means. So the FEAST project is based in Kyoto, Japan, and it's part of the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature. In this project, we used transdisciplinarity, among other methods, and we looked especially at the transition. And part of the transition is what happens in the niches of the food system. And so organic farming is one of these topics, but urban farming as well. But I personally looked at beekeepers and beekeeping and how they could be part of a transition to a more sustainable food system. And so within this project, we did a lot of workshops in different places in Japan. And one of the methods we used there was backcasting, for example, and talking about the future of the food system that people desired. Many times school lunch was mentioned as a topic by the participants, and the importance of school lunch for the diet of the children, but also for the social and cultural role it plays, and as an outlet for organic farmers. So a lot of different aspects of the food system come together in the school lunch itself. This became then one of the topics of our project, and Fumi Iwashima had been with us about 2 years ago and looked more closely at the school lunch in Japan. So the next slides are based on her work. You can see here is an image of a monthly schedule of the lunches for a school. For the month of November, and so usually food in Japan is more based in the seasons, and so there's different meals you can see already at the beginning of the lunch based on what is seasonally available. Generally, nowadays 150 countries in the world have some kind of school lunch for different age groups. And that was not always the case. School lunch is something that has been introduced about 100 years ago into different countries, usually especially for more poor children, but not only. And in Kyoto, 65,000 meals per day are served. So it is quite a significant number of food that crosses the counter. The school lunch in Japan also started as a relief effort focused on poor families. And as in many countries, it was also a means to get the children of more poor families going to school instead of doing other activities. And over the course of the time, the focus changed. And so not only poor families were included, but everyone attending school. It can also be said that the school lunch over the courses of time represent the different food regimes. So in the post-war era, it was a lot about the government serving its people and the state providing for the children. And then with liberalization, privatization, it was also a retreat of the government, and more private actors got involved, and the idea that the government should not intervene or interfere with the diet of the individuals gained more ground. And nowadays, the school lunch is more based in the idea of food education. So besides the diet, educating about diet, it's also about educating food in general and creating a culture around food through the school. So the lunch is becoming a subject in itself. Having lunch is a school subject in the plan, as part of the curriculum. It's not only a private individual activity. The teacher also takes part together with the children in the school lunch. This is a kind of plan that is being made then for the provision of a school lunch. So schools usually have a nutritionist working out the plan of the meals according to diets. And so we picked up all these kind of elements of the school lunch system to create a project on an imaginary future school lunch. This project started about 2 years ago, and it was only done for a single event at first. But since it became very popular, it grew over time, and it transformed and took new shapes again and again. And it gained more details and background as well. So the future school lunch, the School Lunch 2050, is based on 4 scenarios. We started the scenarios with 2 axes. The one axis is thinking about if the Japanese food system would become more globalized than it is already, or if it becomes more localized. The other axis is talking about managing the 1.5 degree climate goal or not managing the 1.5 degree climate goal. So we're going to have climate change. And the aspect of climate change is quite important also for the school lunch, but the food system in general. Because it means if we want to manage to stay within the 1.5 degree climate change, the 1.5 degree Paris goal, then we need to change a lot of aspects in the food system. We cannot continue the same way as the food system is running today. It needs to change. And a lot of science points at that. So there's no doubt anymore that there needs to be change in the food system. On the other hand, if we do not manage to achieve the 1.5 degree goal, we will see stronger climate change coming, and that stronger climate change means a change in the food system in itself. So in either way, there needs to be, or there will be, change in the food system. That's why it was important to put this into scenarios for us. It became one of the axes that we chose. And the globalized and the localized food system is another important dimension which has been around in Japan already for a long time. So there's continuous discussion about this level of food system. And today about 65-70% of the food is being imported, for example, in Japan. And the goal was to reduce this for a long time. So the open house was the start of this project, and as you can see, it was a busy day, and it actually is 3-4 hours of one day per year that our institute has every year. And we had about 800 children and their parents and grandparents coming through. And so we displayed 4 school lunches on tablets, asked the viewers to vote on which future would they like to eat. So the school lunches represented the scenarios, and the school lunches were based on scenario statements that we made, which are based in science. So we had the 4 scenarios. We filled these scenarios with bullet points that we could find from the research, how these play out, these scenarios. And then we translated the scenarios into actual meals and showed them in kind of plastic versions, self-made versions. This type of food displays are rather common in Japan or East Asia at restaurants. And so people are quite used to seeing these kind of meals and making a choice based on them. So here's some of the details. The detailed food items are addressing imaginaries common in Japan that people like or don't like. So it creates associations for the viewers which help or which trigger a thinking process for the viewers to think about the food system of the future, but also of the present. And that was an important aspect, that we did not provide a current situation in that sense. Only indirectly. The background to what we are showing is already based in the niches of today's food system, but for the viewer, this was the future. So they had to start thinking of, well, if this is the future, what is it what we eat today? It addressed more dimensions than just future, but also the current situation in a way. Because it was so successful at the Openhouse and then also at other events, we decided to go a step further, and I applied for some more funding and then was able to involve an artist to visualize the different scenarios into stories. Before we had images and texts, and so this was a new next step for us to visualize the scenarios. So this one is the climate change plus localized food system, where we might have coffee and bananas from Kyoto, for example, or more aquaponic farming because there's more typhoons and so on. A global system which is also in the climate change situation, with climate refugees arriving, working on farms, or more lab-grown meat, for example, but also more additives and colors and shapes to food. A scenario where we manage the climate goal, but still globalized, with more imports and of basic food and export of specialized food, more robotic farming in Japan maybe, but also more influence through social media and maybe plant-based diets. And the localized version, which manages the climate goal, so a kind of degrowth scenario in a way where everybody is more involved in the food system overall, and where food is grown in many different kinds of ways. There were a few findings. Generally, in the literature research, so looking at the backgrounds for the different scenarios, it is obvious that the discussions in more public media is really focused on more technical side of the food futures. So futures is often connected with technology, high tech in the way, but the research itself in the world, the research that is out there on the food system and the future of food, is not only about technology. So there's a lot of other research, but it doesn't it isn't well connected with this phrase of futures. So there's different frames at play. Also, this project was useful in the way that it opened up new channels of communication with viewers with across all ages. That was one of the nice things, because school lunch is so ingrained. Almost every person in Japan has had the experience of school lunch, and therefore it was very easy for anyone to say something about this, which is not always the case in Japan. And it was a very attractive display for people to get stuck and to think about things related to the food system. It helped us actually to engage again with people and gain also new information about how people think or perceive food and the food system. So in the next step now, because this upgrade of the latest upgrade with the images was not displayed so far, because all the events were cancelled because of the pandemic, I again gained more funding to create now a digital version. So the display with the meals and the imagery of the scenarios will move onto a homepage now, which allows the users to choose a meal probably, and then get the scenario background information for the meals, and even links then to further read up on the latest studies and aspects of all the different kinds of aspects where the future might be of the food system. That's supposed to be online hopefully by March. Another project that I got involved in is with a department at the Kyoto University that is working with Hitachi on the virtual reality around climate change and food. And so they really like this idea of the lunch and visualizing the lunch and the scenarios into a lunch. And so we are discussing how to use that idea in a virtual reality context. In any case, I'm also open and interested if there's other ways of collaborating and extending this idea to other countries or to other types of meals, to other media forms. And so if you're interested to work on this, please get in touch with me. I am still available under this email address, and the FEAST project will continue until March 21 at the Research Institute. But after that, we will be available as a non-profit research and consultancy. And so we will continue this kind of work just in a new institutional form. Please get in touch. And I'll thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak about the work and this project. I hope you enjoyed, and have a nice day.